Antwort auf die Frage nach dem Warum?
Jozef Fritzl doesn't want the world to see his face. What he did for 24 years in the cellar of the family home is all too well known. It was a bizarre spectacle as he was led into the dock.
Fritzl, haben Sie eine Erklärung nach dem Warum?
The people are asking if there's an explanation for why you did it, says the reporter. Fritzl remains silent. This is the first attempt at understanding how a man could keep his daughter locked up underground and father 7 children with her. A man who the world has seen enjoying holidays in the sun while his children suffered underground. Fritzl is said to expect to spend the rest of his life in prison. It's likely he'll take many of his secrets with him.
The Fritzl case came into the limelight in the year 2008 when a lady named Elisabeth Fritzl told Austrian police officials that she had been held captive for 24 years by her father, Jozef Fritzl. Jozef used to assault and abuse her sexually, and even raped her many times when she was held captive in a concealed area in the basement of their family home. As a result of this, Elisabeth had to give birth to 7 babies, out of which 3 remained captive with their mother, and 3 were brought up by Fritzl and his wife, Rosemarie, and 1 child died prematurely just a few days after birth. Elisabeth Fritzl was born in Austria in the year 1966 to Jozef Fritzl and Rosemarie. She had 6 siblings, 3 brothers and 3 sisters. Her father used to abuse her when she was just 11 years old in 1977. After completion of her schooling, Elisabeth started preparing to become a waitress when she turned 15. She then ran away from her home in 1983 and went into hiding along with her friend in Vienna. Police found her within 20 days and returned her back to her parents. She later rejoined her waitress course and completed the same to get a job in the nearby city. In the year 1984, Jozef Fritzl called Elisabeth to assist him in refitting a door in the basement of their home in Austria. Elisabeth, unaware of his intentions and how life will turn after this event, went down the stairs to help her father. When she was about to leave the place, she was held over by a small cloth piece soaked in ether over her mouth and nose. Elisabeth had no clue whatsoever that she was indeed helping her own father's plan to lock her up as a sex slave. Jozef Fritzl was planning to build an underground prison cell for years and received official permission from the municipal authorities as well much earlier, in the late 1970s. It was pretty normal in those days of the Cold War to build nuclear bunkers in the basement of the house, so getting permission was not difficult for Jozef. In fact, Jozef was provided a grant of £2,000 by the local council towards the building costs. There were a series of doors that needs to be opened before reaching the cellar where he planned to keep Elisabeth captive. Elisabeth had to go through hell for the next 24 years as the horror unleashed upon her was never ending. She was at times forced to catch rats with her bare hands. Summer was the worst time of the year for her because of intolerable sweat, which she narrated later in her writings. For the rest of the world, life was moving while Elisabeth's life was still and stagnant. Initially, her father tied her up with an iron chain in such a way that she could barely move half a meter on either side of the bed. He then gave her more freedom to move by attaching the chain around her waist. As the chain was causing trouble during sexual activity, he has removed it after a few months. Jozef abused her sexually and used to rape her multiple times a day for many years until she was released in April 2008. He raped her at least 3,000 times in those 25 years, which resulted in 7 babies. Elisabeth's children had to witness her abuse as they grew older. 3 of her kids were with her in the basement, and the other 3 children appeared mysteriously near the doorstep of Jozef Fritzl and his wife, Rosemarie, as per his planning.
The children, Lisa, Alexander and Monica, were allowed to live a normal life upstairs.
Fritzl used to dictate letters to Elisabeth that she was well but could not look after the kids. He would then drive miles to post them back to his wife Rosemarie. Elisabeth was completely broken inside, but she tried to console herself that at least her 3 kids are having a better life than those languishing downstairs. Jozef used to beat and kick her repeatedly. He used to force Elisabeth to reenact scenes from violent pornographic films. This has left Elisabeth not only with physical injuries but also caused psychological damage. She had spent the initial 5 years all alone. One of her children died prematurely just after his birth in the cellar in 1996. The child was facing difficulty in breathing and died in her arms when he was barely 3 days old. Jozef later admitted that he burned the child's body in an incinerator. Fritzl tried to defend himself during the trial, saying that Elisabeth's behavior was difficult to predict and in order to protect her from the outside world he locked her up. His lawyer tried to portray Jozef as a caring and devoted father who spent time and money maintaining both of his families. When the babies started to come, it was really a horror for her. She tried to commit suicide, but looking at her kids, she had a purpose to live after many years of being alone. She gave birth to all babies without seeking any medical help for almost 12 years. Jozef provided her with disinfectant, a dirty pair of scissors, and a book on childbirth. Fritzl has threatened to kill Elisabeth and her children if they tried to escape. The indictment order released by the court said. He told them he had installed a system so that the doors would give them electric shocks if they tried to open them, and that poison would be released into the cellar if they tried to escape, killing them all instantly. Jozef Fritzl used to turn off the power supply to the basement for days so that Elisabeth was left alone in complete darkness. Her painful story came to an end when Kirsten, her 19-year-old daughter, needed urgent hospitalization. Jozef Fritzl, who has never shown any mercy earlier, drove her to the hospital in his car. The doctors who were attending Kirsten became deeply suspicious looking at her condition. Doctors later alerted police officials about the whole incident. There was an appeal in the media which were broadcasted repeated for the mother to come forward with the necessary information if they want to save her life. She, along with her 2 boys, saw the appeals on the television in their basement. She then requested her father to let her go. Jozef Fritzl, who was growing old, saw his powers waning and was finding it difficult to maintain both families. He started to hatch a plan as to how he can get rid of all this without too many questions being asked. For the first time in 24 years, he relented. He told some stories to the hospital staff. However, both police officials and doctors refused to believe his story. When Elisabeth was in hospital, she was taken to a separate room away from her father by police officials, and they intimidated her to charge her with a child abuse case because of sheer negligence toward her daughter. Elisabeth then told police officials that she will reveal everything to them on the condition that she would never have to set eyes on her father again.
The court's hearing Elisabeth Fritzl's story through videoed interviews. 11 hours of tape deemed so harrowing, the jury will watch it in small chunks.
In the case of Jozef Fritzl, the prosecutor of Amstetten accuses him of committing the following crimes: murder, enslavement, false imprisonment, coercion, rape and incest.
Fritzl admits rape, imprisonment and incest, but denies the murder of one of those 7 children by his failure to care for it. While Elisabeth and 3 others were kept prisoner down here, a complex of small, windowless rooms. The jury was asked to smell items from this world to give them an idea of conditions. Fritzl's lawyer appealed to the court not to be swayed by emotions, insisting he was not a monster. "If you just want to have sex, you don't have children," said Rudolf Meyer. "As a monster, I'd kill all of them downstairs." And Fritzl himself addressed the court. "I had a very difficult childhood," he said. "My mother didn't want me. I was beaten. When he grew older," he said, "he fought back against her. From that point on, I was Satan personified for her."